All right. Good morning again to those that are joining us online. We're sorry. I don't know why my microphone's not being picked up on the live stream, but that's okay. I can hold the microphone. Let me again thank everybody for your prayers. We definitely need them. We covet them. We appreciate them. Also on the WM's lunch. What was the date for that again? November the 8th. Guys, hang out with us. You don't have to drop your wives off and leave. We'll do something too. We'll have some fellowship and hang out. So guys, don't go anywhere. This way we've got something going on for everybody on that day. I think that's the last commercial. Obviously, happy Yom Kippur to everybody. For us, it was, of course, yesterday. Calendar being just a little bit different from the Jewish calendar. I'm sorry about Wednesday. Pulled my back out again. Feeling better today. So I'm actually incorporated what I was going to do on Wednesday. We're going to do it today, and not just as a study, but also as a sermon, as a teaching. And so if you have the notes, they're out there. If not, you guys can download them in both YouTube and, of course, in the app. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell, let us know where you're watching from. We sincerely appreciate that. Our opening verse for this morning, or verses for this morning, is going to come from the book of Colossians. Colossians chapter 2 and verses 16 and 17. And this should be really, really familiar to most of us. We've talked about this before. I'm sure if you've ever talked to somebody, if you've ever shared or ministered with another brother or sister, these verses always come up in that discussion as to, are we supposed to be doing X, Y, Z, or are we not supposed to be doing X, Y, Z? And these are the verses that are normally used by our brethren to say that we are not supposed to be part of the feast. We're not supposed to be celebrating the feast. Those are things that are done. Those are things that are over. They're not part of us. They are really Jewish holidays, and we are of the new covenant. And hopefully by the end of today, you're going to see that that is not what this means whatsoever. And of course, what comes along with that is the idea that Abba's word, his Torah, is a burden, which of course it is not. It is not a burden. His burden is light. His burden is easy. The word is not hard to follow. But these words in Colossians 2:16 say the following. Let no one therefore judge you in eating or in drinking, or in respect of a festival, or a new moon, meaning a new month, or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of what is to come, but the body of the Messiah. For a few moments this morning, the title and the topic of the message is Yom Kippur, the Yom Kippur prophecy, a choice. Yom Kippur prophecy, a choice. You guys know the prayer here. If you know it, if you're watching and you know it, please pray with us and say it nice and loud with me, everybody in here. Abba, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart that's willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. Amen. Okay, so as I said, we're going to get into the idea of Yom Kippur, but before we do that, I wanted to answer this question. I wanted to take a couple of minutes to make sure that we understand what these verses and the verses before it and the verses after it actually mean concerning letting no one judge you for food or drink or a feast day or a new month or a Sabbath, etc., etc., etc. Because as I said, most of the time, and I'm probably across the board with a large percentage of people that love Messiah, read these verses and they read them in the context that what Saul is saying is, don't let anybody judge you because you're not doing them. you don't have to do them. And since you don't have to do them, you don't let somebody judge you for not doing them, because these really are about Messiah. And amen, they are about Messiah. There is no doubt that these verses, that all of the feast days, the Sabbaths, everything else is indeed about the Messiah. But, context is everything. And you and I have spent, I don't know how many weeks now, going through the Dead Sea Scrolls, going through books of Enoch, looking at the history, trying to find the Essenes or the Zadok priest inside the gospel, really seeing that the whole story of the gospel has now had a very, very different color. It's not that the story changed, it's just that the story got bigger. It got bigger, it got more colorful, and certainly I believe because we are coming towards the end, the ending of this Jubilee and the beginning of the last Jubilee. If that calendar is correct, the beginning of the last Jubilee starts in March. I think it's March 19th is the spring equinox. Whatever that following Wednesday is, begins the last 50 years of the last Jubilee. And if all the math is correct, and we'll maybe on a Bible study, we'll go through all the math and try to, go through it. And maybe it's a year off, maybe it's 2 years off. I don't know, because one calendar may not be accurate. Our calendar, meaning the calendar we use today. But if we are entering into that last Jubilee, then things are about to happen. Meaning, if this is that last Jubilee at the end of the 6,000th year, it should therefore mean that at the beginning of the 7,000th year, the millennial kingdom should start. Now, all of a sudden, that puts us in a real kind of right in your face position that, man, this is pretty darn serious. Have you ever driven in a car and it's really, really hot on the road, and you look in front of you and you sort of get those mirages, the heat coming up from the road, and there's something there. You can't tell what it is. It's far off, and you really can't tell what it is. And the closer and the closer and the closer you get, you realize either it's another car or something on the side of the road. But from far away, you really couldn't tell what it was. But the closer you get to it, all of a sudden, it becomes more clear to you. You begin to understand. You can see what it is that you're driving up on. And by the time you're close enough, you can figure it out. Oh, yeah, there's something in the road, and I gotta go around, or else, I don't want to hit the thing. And in that same line of thinking, if we are getting closer to that time, and I believe we are, then there are things that have been murky, that have been seen from a distance, things that we have guessed on, things that we have hypothesized on, beliefs we may have had for a season at a time, that the closer we get, the clearer or the more clear the picture will become. And I sincerely believe that. And as we get closer in these last Jubilee, things are going to get very, very clear. We're going to begin to understand what's going on. Because the Master tells us there's nothing that's going to be hidden. Everything that was hidden is going to be shouted from where? The rooftops. He wants us to understand. He wants us to know. And so the Dead Sea Scrolls and all the stuff we've been doing has given us some context into the conflict of what goes on in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And way, 200 years before Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the conflict between the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Essenes, or really the Zadok priest. There is a major conflict between them. And of course, we know in the gospel, the Master rips apart the Pharisees. The Master rips apart the Sadducees. He rips apart the scribes. There's only one group he does not rip apart, and as a matter of fact, winds up quoting over and over and over again. The group that believed that Messiah was coming. The group that believed he would be born of a virgin. The group that believed that he would be born in Bethlehem. The group that believed that he would be the Melchizedek priest. The group that believed that the Melchizedek priest would indeed be Elohim in the flesh. And lots and lots and lots and lots of other prophecies that the Pharisees did not believe and still do not believe till today. We're talking about modern Judaism today. They are the extension of the Pharisaic religion. Still do not believe those things. And of course, the Sadducees are long gone, even though they're creating a priesthood today. So with context then, knowing what the animosity is between them, these verses now, I hope, will make more sense to you. So this is really important. Before we even get into the Yom Kippur prophecy, let's read that verse again. This is number 3 on your notes, but this is not just the opening verse. This is verses all the way up to, 23, I guess. So, same verses, Colossians chapter 2. Remember, everything in yellow is commentary. That's me. That's PD, just giving you my commentary. Everything else in every other color is me just highlighting something so that it stands out at you so you can recognize it. And of course, it only shows up on the screen behind me. So let's do this. It says, "Let no one therefore judge you in eating or drinking or in respect of a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath." The PDP version, what Saul is saying is let no one, and the ones he's referring to are the Pharisees and Sadducees. Don't let them judge you. Because he's talking to a group in Colossus that's a mixture of both Jewish believers and Gentile believers together. And he's telling them, don't let the establishment tell you how to do these things. Of course, we read it as, let no one therefore judge you in eating or drinking, meaning you can eat and drink whatever you want. There's no more food laws. There's no more food instruction. That's not what he's saying. He's telling them, do not let the Pharisees judge you concerning those things. He says, which are a shadow or a prophecy of what is to come. But the body, the reality, is of the Messiah. It's all about the Messiah. Everything, all the feast, and he's talking about the new moons, all of it is about Messiah. Verse 18, let no one deprive you of the prize. Now, what's the prize? The prize he's referring to here. So if he's saying, don't let anybody judge you on how you keep Sabbath and food and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, don't let any of those people deprive you of the prize. And I put there in the PDP, what's the prize? Understanding what the Moedim are really about. Don't let them take away the true understanding you now have in Messiah as to what all of those festivals were actually about. Let no one deprive you of the prize, like those who take delight in false humility, Sadducees, and the worship of messengers, rabbis, taking his stand on what he has not seen, puffed up in his fleshly mind. That's apostasy. He's saying, don't listen to the religious doctrines that are coming out of this group who will judge you on these things, then that because they have not seen, they don't really understand, they're puffed up in their fleshly mind. This is apostasy. Verse 19, and not holding fast to the head, that is to Messiah. They do not recognize Messiah. Pharisees and Sadducees as a whole, obviously some did after the resurrection, but as a whole, they did not. And not holding fast to the head, that is Messiah, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grows with the growth of Elohim. If then you died with Messiah from the elementary matters of the world. I'm going to backtrack a second because we need to define that. What elementary matters of the world is Saul referring to? If then you died with Messiah from the elementary religious, Pharisaic, and Sadduceic doctrines or matters of the world, why, as though living in the Jewish, Pharisaic, Sadduceic religion world, do you subject yourselves to dogmas? The dogma meaning oral Torah. In other words, you're subjecting yourself back to what you actually came out of. The dogmas, the oral Torah, which is not Yah's word. Verse 21. And so he gives us an example. Here's the dogmas. Do not touch. Do not taste. Do not handle. These are the traditions or the oral Torah of the Pharisees, which are all to perish with use, according to the commandments and teachings of men. Guys, that verse right there defines everything. Everything he just said about all of this stuff that they're going to judge you on, you're being judged by the judgment of the commandments of men, not the commandments of Elohim. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. One more time. Which are all to perish with use according to the commandments and teaching of men, the oral Torah of the Pharisees. These indeed have an outward appearance of wisdom. Messiah said the same thing. On the outside, you're whitewashed sepulchres. You look good on the outside, but on the inside, Pharisees, you're what? You're dead. You're full of dead men's bones. That's what Saul is saying here. These people who are doing this, teaching the commandments of men, indeed have an outward whitewashed sepulchre appearance, but they are full of dead men's bones. An appearance of wisdom in self-imposed worship, humiliation, and harsh treatment of the body, which is of no value, only for the satisfaction of the flesh. So reading it like that, in context, what you begin to realize, or I hope you're beginning to realize, is Saul's not saying, don't do the feast days. He's not saying, don't keep Sabbath. He's saying, don't let those who would judge you because you're not doing it the way they want you to do it. Because you understand these days are about Messiah. These are a shadow of him. This is not a don't do it. This is a don't do it the way they do it sentence. And I can prove it to you. Because all that Saul says here, the master himself says as well. Number 2 on your notes, this is the Gospel of Mark, chapter 7 and verse 1. This is familiar. We've talked about this a couple of times, so you should be familiar with this. It says, and the Pharisees and some of the scribes assembled to him, having come from Jerusalem, and seeing some of his taught ones eat bread with defiled, that is, with unwashed hands, they found fault in them. Hold on a second. Just go right back to Colossians chapter 2. Let no one of the Pharisees judge you, therefore, in eating and drinking. So what's going on here in Mark chapter 7? The Pharisees are judging the disciples and Messiah and those who follow him in what? Eating and drinking. This is not a prohibition that says, well, now you can just eat whatever you want. That's not the issue. The issue is all these other traditions and laws that get put on eating. So it goes on to say, they eat with unwashed hands. They found fault. They judged them according to food and drink. Verse 3. For the Pharisees and all the Yehudim do not eat unless they wash their hands thoroughly, holding fast the tradition of the elders, the oral Torah, the dogma of men. And coming from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And here it is. And this is Messiah speaking. And there are many other traditions, that is, dogmas of men. What other traditions? Sabbath, new moon, feast days. There was traditions for all of them, which they have received and hold fast. The washing of the cups and the utensils, the copper vessels and couches. These are dogmas. These are traditions of men. Self-imposed religion. They are not Torah. They are not the instruction of Moses. They are the instruction of men. Verse 5. Then the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, why do your taught ones not walk according to the tradition of the elders, the oral Torah, but eat bread with unwashed hands, as the Pharisees do? Number 5 on your notes. And he, meaning the master, answering, said to them, well did Isaiah, Yeshayahu, prophesy concerning you hypocrites, as it has been written, this people respect me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. And in vain they worship me. Go all the way back up to the first one, all the way back up to Colossians 2. Look at all the way down the bottom, verse 23. These have indeed an outward appearance of wisdom, of self-imposed worship. They worship with their lips in humiliation and harsh treatment of the body, which is of no value. That's exactly what Messiah just said. Can you see that that is exactly what Messiah just said? So going back to it, they honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me, and in vain they do worship me. In food, in drink, in Sabbath, in new moon or new months, and feast days. And instead of teaching what Moses taught, they are teaching as the teachings and the commandments of men, which is exactly what Saul just said in Colossians. Forsaking the commandment of Elohim, meaning the commandment that comes from Moses, you hold fast the tradition of men, the oral Torah. And he said to them, well do you set aside the commandment of Elohim, you make it of no value at all, in order to guard your traditions. So when we're reading Colossians 2, you have to read it knowing these verses first and knowing the animosity between the people of the community and the Pharisees and Sadducees, how they were totally opposed to one another. The Sabbaths, the feasts, etc., they are shadows of the Messiah. They are prophetic teachings. John 5:39, the Master says to the Pharisees, scribes, and Sadducees, you search the scriptures because you think you possess everlasting life in them. And these are the ones that bear witness of me. So when Saul says these are a shadow of Messiah, a prophecy of Messiah, but the reality is Messiah, is he saying anything any different than Messiah just said here in these verses? That you're teaching things that are they're not Torah, they're your traditions, and you're judging the disciples and me for not doing it the way you do it. How many times did they judge the Messiah on how he kept Sabbath? over and over and over again. Everything that we read in Colossians already happened in the gospel story. So all Saul is doing is warning us, don't go back to that. Don't do that all over again. Don't get the mindset that, okay, now that we know Messiah, that we can just throw out the feast days, because the feast days are shadows or prophecies of the coming Messiah. Now, I'm not going to get into how they are. I'm going to do this in another study. We're going to get into the former rain and latter rain and the teacher of righteousness a little bit later. But suffice it to say, of all the 7 feasts, the first 3 occur in the spring. They are reminiscent of the first coming of Messiah. They are prophecies of the first coming of Messiah. Then in the middle of summer, you have Shavuot. It is a prophecy of the giving of the Spirit and this message now going out to the world. And then you have the fall feast in the 7th month, which is prophetic. If the first coming is in the spring and the giving of the Spirit is in the summer, then what are the fall feasts for? Or what are the fall feasts a prophecy of? The second coming. They are a prophecy of the second coming. So if we really want to understand what the whole mechanism is between the first coming and the second coming, what must we understand? The feasts. We must understand the order of the feast and all the things that go on in it, because they all tell us about Messiah. So let's take a look real quick at the feast of Yom Kippur, because obviously that's where we are. And I know this may be review to many of you guys. We've talked about this before, so bear with me if it is. I'm sure there's others that are maybe hearing this for the first time, but I'm going to go through it quickly so not to spend too much time on it. The whole concept of the Day of Atonement, or the day of Yom Kippur, was that day when a covering by blood is put on the Ark of the Covenant to cover the sin of Israel for 1 year. Only the high priest on that day, that one time a year, could go in the 7th month and commit this act of worship. He, of course, and if you look at the pictures up there, he would take 2 different goats, 2 goats that looked very, very much alike. Leviticus 16 says, "And he shall slay the goat of the sin offering, which is for the people, and he shall bring its blood inside the veil, and shall do with that blood as he did with the blood of the bull, and sprinkle it on the lid of atonement and in front of the lid of atonement. And he shall make atonement for the set apart place, because of the uncleanness of the children of Israel, and because of their transgressions in all their sins. And so he does for the tent of appointment, which is dwelling with them in the midst of their uncleanness." So 2 rams are there. 1 is picked, 1 becomes an offering. Later on, the concept and the idea is that a red cord gets tied around that ram that's going to be sacrificed as a sin offering. And the other ram is not going to be sacrificed as a sin offering. Something else is going to happen to him. And of course, once they do this, first the high priest offers up offerings for himself. He kills a bullock for himself, for his family. He offers blood inside the Holy of Holies, because he's just as much a sinner as everybody else. So there must be blood to cover him. And once he's covered, now he's in a position to now bring blood or forgiveness on behalf of the entire house of Israel. And of course, he does that with this offering, this sin offering of this ram. He takes the blood from that ram and enters into the Holy of Holies. You can see on the last picture there, all the way to my left, just a picture of the high priest standing in the Holy of Holies with the smoke of incense filling up the room so that it sort of blurs the very glory of Yah that is over the actual ark. And he takes the blood, dips his finger in it, and he sprinkles it on the ark 7 different times. This ark is called the mercy seat. This is where Father delivers mercy to his people because a payment of blood has already been made on their behalf. I know, stuff that we all know. And this is prophecy, this is history to Israel. But the thing is, these are not Jewish holidays. These are Yah's feast days. I want to emphasize that again because so often in the body today, everybody says, "Oh, we're going to the Jews are celebrating the Jewish holidays. I got off from work." No, they're not the Jews' holidays. These are Yah's feast days. These are the Lord's feast days. This is his way of communicating to us the entire story of Messiah through these things that we are supposed to remember. And so you can see it there just in those pictures, except this whole system was to atone for or to cover sin. And of course, the next Day of Atonement on the next year, you would have to do it all over again. Okay, number 7. So these are prophecies. We just finished reading. These are shadows. These are prophecies. So here's some prophecies I know that you know. I'm not telling you anything new, but let's make the connection. The high priest going in with the ram's blood that has been picked is a type of Messiah dying for us and bringing his blood, as the book of Hebrews says, into the holy place, not here, but there, and offering his blood there. Here's Hebrews chapter 10. We've been in Hebrews for the last couple of weeks, but listen to what it says. It says, by that desire, we have been set apart through the offering of the body of Yeshua Messiah once for all. Not year after year after year. He is a priest that has to do it only once. And indeed, every priest stands by day doing service and repeatedly offering the same slaughter offerings, which are never able to take away sins. They only atone. They only cover. They never take away sin. But he, that is the Messiah, having offered one slaughter offering for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of Elohim, waiting from that time onward until his enemies are made a footstool for his feet. I know you know this. This whole story of Yom Kippur is the story of Messiah's death. It's the story of the resurrection. It's the story of him entering into the tent that is there in Father's presence, the temple, and not offering the blood of bulls and goats and lambs, but offering up his own blood as an atonement, not to cover sin, but to forgive sin once and for all. And because he's not an Aaronic priest, because he is a priest after the order of Melchizedek, and he cannot ever die again, and there was no sin in him that he needed to offer up a bullock on his behalf first, that offering is perfect. And if you are part of that offering, that makes you what? Perfect. You are perfect in the offering. I'm not saying you're perfect in how you speak and I've heard some of you guys. I'm not saying you're perfect and all that kind of crazy. I'm saying that in Yah, you are perfect. You are covered. There is no need to do it again. It's done. It's done. This is Bible 101. We should all know this. I hope we all know this. But it's important nonetheless because it gets us to something else. before all of this can happen, this is number 8 on your notes, before the blood of that ram gets brought in, before this prophecy, this memorial that will become a prophecy of the coming Messiah occurs, there's a lot of other things that happen too that are prophecies as well. And here's the first one. Before the atonement actually happens, a choice has to be made. A choice has to be made. The high priest is presented with 2 rams, 1 bull for himself and his family, but for the people, he's presented with 2 rams, and they look pretty much the same. Rams do. Rams look like rams. He's presented with 2 rams, almost identical. And what he has to do, and this is the chief priest that must do this, he has to pick which one is going to be the sin offering and which one is going to do something else. We'll get into the something else in just a second. Except it's not really just up to him to pick. They cast lots, the Urim and Thummim, the colored stones, and they cast lots to decide on which one of the goats does the red cord go. And normally, it always winds up on the right hand. So if you're facing the goat, it's the goat to your right that winds up getting the red cord. That goat is called the goat for Yah. That goat will be the one that will be bled out, burnt on the altar, its blood brought in and sprinkled on the altar to cover the sins of Israel for a year. But there's another goat, 2 goats. So a choice must be made. But the choice, while it is up to the priest, it's up to the priest to interpret, to recognize the instruction of Yah as he casts lots, to interpret it properly, to put the right red thread on the right goat. What happens if you pick the wrong goat? What happens if you're not paying attention to what Father is doing through his Spirit through the casting of lots, and you just decide, I'm gonna eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And it's that one. That's a problem. That's a big problem because you've got a 50-50 chance of what? Getting it wrong. And, 50-50 odds are not bad, I guess, if you're, I don't know, not that I go and do this, but I guess if you're playing poker, 50-50 is probably not bad odds. But this isn't poker. Or this is gambling, but this isn't gambling with chips and money and everything else. This is gambling with life. So you don't want to pick incorrectly. You guys, everybody's seen Indiana Jones, right? You guys, everybody's seen that. Remember the one when Sean Connery's his father, right? And they're in the blimp. I love it. Every time you see Indiana Jones and he sees the Nazis, he's like, I hate Nazis. Greatest line in all the movies. I hate Nazis. And they're being chased all over the place. And they're looking for the Holy Grail. There is no Holy Grail. It's just mysticism. But they're looking for the Holy Grail, a cup that was supposed to be the cup of the Passover that the master drinks from. And the idea is if you drink from this cup, you will live forever. And of course, there's a Knights Templar. They find out where it is. They go to get it. The Nazis are there. They're there. And of course, they get into the place. There's a Knights Templar who has been there since the Crusades, guarding the cup. He's old, but he's been there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And they got to figure out which cup it is. And the guy that's the Nazi wants Indiana Jones to pick it. So Indiana Jones looks, and he picks a cup. And the guy that's the Nazi takes it, puts the wine in it, and drinks it, and it's what? It's not the right cup. And obviously Indiana Jones did that on purpose. And did you ever see that? He drinks the cup and all of a sudden he starts melting and his eyes are bulging and he's dying. I know it's gross, nasty, but he picked, and then the actual Templar Knight says he picked wrongly. Okay, yep, you're right. He picked wrongly. He picked wrongly. You don't want to pick wrongly. You don't want to make a mistake when it comes to this. Here is Leviticus chapter 16 and verse 7. It says, "And he shall take the 2 goats and let them stand before Yah at the door of the tent of appointment. And Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for Yah, and the other lot for Azazel." Now, if you have like a King James or an NIV or some of those other translations, there's a mistranslation here. I can't. It's maybe mistranslation's not exactly the word. There's not an entirely accurate translation, because a scapegoat is somebody who takes the blame for somebody else, right? Somebody's a scapegoat in your job. They get the blame, and they're the ones that are going to get fired. Granted, that's just part of our vernacular, and that's part of what's going on here, except the word there is not scapegoat. That's how it's translated in many of the Bibles. The actual word there is Azazel, which should be very familiar to us after all the weeks of doing what we've done. Azazel is a watcher. He is a fallen angel. He's one in the book of Enoch that's responsible for him, and not just him, a whole lot of other ones that come down to Mount Hermon and do all sorts of crazy things to humanity, bringing humanity to the brink of destruction, so much so that the flood has to come and Abba has to wipe it all away. So it says, "And Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for Yah, and the other lot for Azazel. And Aaron shall bring the goat upon which the lot fell for Yah, and shall prepare it as a sin offering. But on the goat which the lot for Azazel fell is caused to stand alive before Yah, to make atonement upon it, and to send it into the wilderness to Azazel." The goat is being sent into the wilderness to Azazel. The other goat is going to be the sacrificial goat that covers the sin for the year. Why the 2? You can see the picture there of the man. He's got his hands, the priest, he's got his hands. So what they would do is they would take, after the offering had been given, the high priest would lay his hands upon the Azazel goat, and he would confess all the sins of Israel. And he had to get everything. Everything had to get out. We've been adulterers. We've been adulteresses. We've been murderers. We've been fornicators. We've been idolaters. We've committed all sorts of horrors. There's been just the whole, everything that's been done in the house of Israel has to be spoken as the hands are laid upon this goat in a ceremonial thing of passing all of those sins that have been confessed onto the head of that goat that goes to Azazel. The goat's not Azazel, the goat's going to Azazel. And it says, "He shall prepare it for a sin offering, but the goat on which the lot for Azazel fell is caused to stand alive before Yah, to make an atonement upon it, and send it into the wilderness to Azazel." So this second goat is going to be taken by an individual into the desert, into the wilderness, and eventually it's going to be brought to a cliff, And it's there's two concepts. They say it's supposed to be let go and wander around the wilderness. The problem is if you do that and the goat knows its way home, that Azazel goat that's got all your sin on it, it's going to wind up where in a couple of days? Back. You're going to be sitting there in Israel and all of a sudden you get meh, meh. That's not a good thing. So what they would often do is bring it to the precipice of a cliff and let it go down into the pit so that it would die there in the desert. Okay. It's a choice. It's a choice between two goats. Everything is prophecy, and you guys know by now everything is cyclical. It's not like the prophecy happens once, it keeps happening until we get to the fullest part of it. So, what happens if we make the wrong choice? If Messiah is the ram, the lamb, the bullock, the red heifer, all of those things, if that's who he is, if he is the one whose blood is presented at the Ark of the Covenant in the temple of Yah in heaven, you got to pick him. You got to pick him. Why? Because this is what the feast days tell us. This is the pattern. This is the prophecy. You're supposed to recognize him by the Spirit of Yah, just like they had the stones that would tell them which one it is. They had the Spirit of Yah who would tell them through witness, this is the Messiah. But if you reject the witness or you reject the stone that comes out and you decide to switch them around and pick whichever goat you want, you have not picked wisely. Matthew chapter 27. Can everybody see the pictures up there really good? I know they're a little small. You can see the one to my left. Obviously, you've got the two goats, the one with the red around it, and you've got the other two goats standing in front of Pilate on the day of the crucifixion. And what is about to be done? They're going to make a choice. That is a Yom Kippur picture. That's a Yom Kippur story right there. Matthew chapter 27, it says, but the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds that they should ask for Barabbas and to destroy Yahusha. I highlighted it there. I know it doesn't show up on your notes, but it's up there. Who did this? The chief priests. Who was the one that was supposed to pick which ram was to be the ram for Yah and which ram was to be the ram for Azazel? The chief priest. And so here you have the chief priest being presented before him two people, one Barabbas. Anybody remember, or with your Hebrew 101, anybody know what Barabbas means? Son of father. Bar Abba. The guy who was dirty and nasty and a criminal, his name was Son of the Father. What was the name of the one standing next to him? Son of the Father. Two goats, very much alike, and yet very, very different. And of course, it goes on to say, the elders persuaded the crowds that they should ask for Barabbas and to destroy Yeshua. And the governor answering, Pilate said to them, which of the two do you wish I release to you? And they said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, What then shall I do with Yeshua, who is called Mashiach? They all said to him, being motivated by the priests, let him be impaled, crucify him. And the governor said, indeed, what evil has he done? None. And they were crying out all the more, saying, let him be impaled. And when Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but rather that an uproar was starting, he took water and he washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this righteous one. Let me ask you a question. Do you really think him washing his hands makes him innocent of this death? Not at all. He says, you shall see to it. And all the people answering said, listen to what they said. They have now picked wrong. They had a chance right here to pick the right goat, which is the job of the priest, to recognize the inspiration of Yah, not in an Uman and Thuman, not in a set of stones, but by the works, but by the miracles, but by the word, but by all of the incredible things that have been said and done, that by the raising of the dead, that by the feeding of thousands, that by teaching that confounds everybody. That should have been enough for them to say, we pick him. But they picked wrong. They picked wrong. And of course, they picked Barabbas. And they say, his blood be upon us and on our children. And I don't think they had any idea what they were saying. Any idea what they were saying. But exactly that would wind up happening. That blood would be upon them and upon their children for a long, long time, all the way up to even 1948 and probably still even now. They picked incorrectly. Messiah told us, so here's the prophecy. So these are all prophecies, right? So the actual gospel story is a prophecy of the actual events you read in Leviticus. Those are prophecies in the gospel that are based on historical events in Leviticus, but the prophecies that are fulfilled in the gospels are also prophecies of what's to come. Because the first coming is the spring feast, the second coming is the fall feast. From trumpets to Yom Kippur to tabernacles. And Messiah told Israel, before this ever happened, listen to these words. Number 10 on your notes. This is out of the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verse 43. The Master says, I have come in my Father's name. That means Yah Hoshea. Yah meaning the poetic name of God. Hoshea meaning salvation. The Messiah's name is Yah Hoshea, or Yahusha, or Yahushua, or in modern Hebrew, Yeshua. He came in his Father's name. And you do not receive me. He's talking to the Pharisees, the scribes. He's talking to them. But if another, and I put the PDP there so you get the context, if another false Messiah comes in his own name, him you would receive. And that has happened many times. Many times that has happened. After Jerusalem falls, around 135 AD, a revolt starts again where they want to start up the temple again. They want to start up the offerings. Rome's already wiped them out. They want to start up the offerings again. And Rabbi Akiva declares that a man named, trying to think of his name for a second, Bar Kokhba, thank you, that Bar Kokhba is the Mashiach, the Messiah, and all of the people of Israel rally about him because to a Pharisaic mind, the Messiah is a warrior who's going to come and get rid of the Roman army and set up a kingdom there in Israel. So they put all their hopes in a false Messiah, and of course Jerusalem falls, gets wiped out. They change the name of Jerusalem, they call it Palestinia. They take the temple and they bury it. It is buried under 50. They have only just now, last couple of weeks, I don't know if you've been watching online, last couple of weeks, they have dug underneath that temple and they have found the pilgrim road that leads from when you get into Jerusalem and you walk all the way up the stairs from Siloam to the temple. It's all excavated now. Now you can go and you can actually go do that as a tourist thing. The entire city was buried over so as to erase it. And then, of course, you know what sits on top of it today. They picked poorly. They picked other messiahs. But it's going to happen again because everything is cyclical. How are you able to believe when you are receiving glory from one another? And the glory that is from the only Elohim you do not seek. Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moses, in whom you have set your expectation. For if you believed Moses, you would have believed me, since he, meaning Moses, wrote about me. Well, when did Moses write about Messiah? Everywhere, but in particular, in the Sabbath, in Passover, in first fruits, in unleavened bread, in Shavuot, in trumpets, in Yom Kippur, and in tabernacles. He is in all of those things. And so what he's telling them is, you say you're reading Moses, but you can't even see what's right in front of you. And because they didn't, they picked unwisely the wrong Messiah. But if you did not believe his writings, how shall you believe my words? So what about the Azazel? Because what winds up happening is the goat that gets hands laid on it, and all the sin of the people of that year get transferred onto it. A man takes it, puts a chain around its neck, a rope, a leash, and it leads it into the wilderness, to a precipice, to a pit. And as I said, eventually it's going to get tossed over the pit. The goat is going to Azazel. This is not Hillel. Hopefully you guys remember this from a couple of weeks ago. This is Azazel. This is not Hillel. This is not what we would call the serpent. This is Azazel, a watcher, a fallen one, but he's not Hillel or Hillel. Here's Enoch chapter 9 and verse 6. It says, look at what Azazel has done, who has taught all unrighteousness on earth, and revealed eternal secrets which were made and kept in heaven, which men were striving to learn. So you have the fall of angels, the fall of the watchers, some 200 and something of them on Mount Hermon. All sorts of crazy things happen. But Azazel and a few others do some very, very specific things. They begin to teach humanity things that humanity was not ready for, including, and I know this sounds crazy, I know this sounds nuts, but this is what it says inside the Dead Sea Scrolls. It wasn't just that the giants, that the angels came in and had relationships with the women. It is that they created some sort of gene splicing, some sort of chemical that allowed for this to happen. and caused all sorts of malformations. And those same things survived even after the flood. That is the writings, which is why it tells us it happened before the flood and it happened after. And you only get this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So it goes on to say, chapter 10, and again, the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness and split open the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him in it. Go to the desert, open up a big pit, and do what with him? Push him in there. That's where he is. And it's not just him. It happens to all the other angels that come down. They just all get put in different places. Some in the Euphrates, some in other places. Yah chains them up. They are judged for the things that they did because they taught humanity things humanity was not ready for. And of course, it causes the rebellion that brings the flood. Verse 8, it says, the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him. Now, lots of other watchers did lots of other things. But the one to whom all sin is ascribed is Azazel. Who is where? In the desert. In the pit. Azazel is not Hallel. Two different beings, two different watchers, two different fallen entities. Azazel is part of the fallen angels, fallen entities that teach men things they should have never learned, that create genetic mutations that should have never been created, of which, by the way, we are told in the Dead Sea Scrolls is going to be happening again at the end of the age. Not giants, not Nephilim, genetic mutations, changing DNA. I know, it sounds sci-fi. It sounds crazy, but it's in the book. That's what they taught them. And Azazel gets the blame for that. All sin is ascribed to him. So this ceremony, so if Azazel is not Hallel, what's the issue with Hallel? Hallel or Hilal, you see it all over the place, the crescent moon that wants to sit on Yah's throne and rule his Moedim. Hillel, the serpent, seems to be the one in the garden, tempting man to rebel, therefore bringing death to humanity. That's bad enough. But Azazel took the nature of rebellion and death that was in us and taught us all sorts of things we should not have been involved in. And so both are going to get it. Hillel's still out there. Azazel is bound. But Hillel is still doing his thing. And just like that picture shows you up there, that's a Yom Kippur story, or the next part of the Yom Kippur story. First, there's the atonement, then there's the Azazel goat who gets removed and is going to be thrown into the pit. Here is the Yom Kippur prophecy. Revelation 13, verse 4. And they worshipped the red dragon, Hallel, who gave authority to the beast, the nations, And they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to fight with him?" And I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon. And he exercised all the authority of the first beast in his presence. And he causes the earth and all those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Who's the one behind all of this? Hallel, the dragon. He's behind the beast. He's the one that's worshiped. And there's the beast. And if you can see the picture up there, the multiple heads, the leopard body, the bare feet, just as it is in Revelation 13. He's not the only beast. There's a beast or a religion that is associated with him, of one who looks like a lamb but speaks like a dragon. Which do you pick? Because the whole world still has to pick. Do you pick the lamb that died, or the ram that died, whose blood is put on the altar? Or as this says, is the whole world deceived by Hallel? And all of a sudden, I'm going to get into this, not now, I'm going to get into this because as the closer we get, the more clear this becomes. And it's becoming pretty clear to me. So, just like in the first Leviticus 16, Leviticus 23, Yom Kippur, the atonement's already been made. The lamb's already been picked. And you either pick that lamb and that blood covers you and forgives your sin, or you pick another one to whom you will be marked. One of 2 choices. That's it. One of 2 choices. And Hallel, the crescent moon, and I put Azazel because what happened to Azazel, because of what he did, he's put in a pit out in the desert. And Yom Kippur is a memorial of that all the things we're doing, yes, is our sin nature, which is why the blood has to be put over the altar to forgive it or to cover it. But we also put it on the goat because it was Azazel who introduced not the sin nature, but he fed it. He fed it, and we ate it. And we ate it. And we ate it. And so he is put away. And this becomes a memorial year after year after year until this. Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. And I saw a messenger coming down from the heaven, having the key to the pit and the deep, and a great chain in his hand, just like the man who's got a leash around the Azazel goat, leading him to the precipice of a cliff. We see the same picture here, except on a much, much bigger scale. And he sees the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, Hallel, and bound him for 1,000 years and threw him into the pit of the deep to shut him up and to set a seal on him so that he should lead the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. And after that, he is to be released for a little while. What's the end product of the Yom Kippur service? The removal of the influence of the watchers. Done. No more teaching that which we should not know and or do. No more influence to do those things that we know go against the nature that Yah has for us. That temptation will be removed for 1,000 years. This is a Yom Kippur story, or the next part of the Yom Kippur story. All of this to say, beloved, as we are getting closer and closer, if we truly are beginning the next or the last Jubilee this upcoming March, we're going to see a whole lot of crazy things. We're already seeing a whole lot of crazy things. Not now, but I'm going to talk to you about the dragon religion that comes out of Arabia next time. I'm going to talk to you about what that dragon religion does because we're watching it today. Today. This is happening. This is happening. But for us, for this morning, choose well. For those hearing the sound of my voice, choose well. Joshua 24:14. And now fear Yah, serve him in perfection and in truth, and put away the mighty ones which your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve Yah. And if it seems evil in your eyes to serve Yah, choose for yourselves this day whom you are going to serve, whether the mighty ones which your fathers served that were beyond the river, or the mighty ones of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But I and my house, we serve Yah. We serve Yah. Choose wisely. That is Yah's word for you for this morning on our Yom Kippur prophecy. Make a choice. Wow. Everything is cyclical. It really is. It is so, so amazing. And we're watching it happen right in front of us, at least the very beginnings. It began a long time ago, but it's definitely accelerating in our age. We're going to get into it. We're going to share more about that. It's going to be eye-opening, maybe even a little offensive. I'm not even sure we can do it on YouTube. We may have to do it on our platform so that we don't get strikes. And we'll see what happens, see what the community guidelines are. Because if you're a watchman on the wall and you see danger coming, and you see an enemy coming, and you don't blow that shofar, that's on you. That death is on you. The death of the people who will be taken is on you. But if you blow that shofar, you let people know war's coming. You let people know conflict's coming. And it may not be something a lot of people want to hear. And people make changes and they understand. Then it's on them. Then it's on them. Beloved, war is coming. War's here. I'm blowing the shofar today. War is here. It's just most of us have our heads inside of our iPhones and iPads and whatever that we just don't take the time to realize what's going on around us. But it's going on around us. So I don't want to say any more and totally bum you guys out because you got to eat in just a second. But these are the days in which we're living. What if, I'm just saying, what if starting this March after the spring solstice begins the last Jubilee? What if? If that's true, really, really difficult times are coming. And yet, really, really wonderful times are coming at the same time. Abba, we love you. We thank you for your word. We thank you for this wonderful, wonderful story. We thank you for your feasts that are, Abba, an instruction, a shadow, a prophecy for us to understand who Messiah is. And we will not let anyone judge us concerning food, concerning drink, concerning a new month, concerning a Sabbath, concerning a feast day. But we will serve you. In the Master's name, amen. Amen. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning. I hope that you enjoyed that. Check it out again. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and a like and subscribe. If you can, share this out with somebody. We'll see you on Monday morning for our morning manna. Shalom, everybody. Actually, no, Shabbat. Shalom. Peace.